Hi, everybody. Welcome to Animation and Games. This is Unit 3, and I get to do Lesson 3 for you today, Drawing in GameLab. Now, the class is introduced to GameLab, the programming environment for the unit, and begins to use it to position shapes on the screen. The lesson covers the basic sequencing and debugging, as well as a few simple commands. At the end of the lesson, you'll create an online version of the image you designed in the previous lesson. Our vocab words for today, first of all, is bug, part of a program that does not work correctly. If you have a bug in one of your programs, it will not let it run. So remember that. Debugging, finding and fixing problems in an algorithm or a program. So when we do have a bug, we need to find it so that our program will run. That is called debugging. Program, an algorithm that has been coded into something that can be run by a machine, the machine being your computer. Okay, today we have three new codes. The first one is fill, which is where we're going to add color. We're going to add color to our shapes. Ellipse is a circle, but we've also added two more letters to our code in ellipse. The first one, the X and the Y, are the positioning of the ellipse. The W and the H tell you the width and the height. The same with a rect, which is a square. Positioning is X and Y. The W and the H is the width and the height. Okay, so the first thing we'll talk about is exploring GameLab. Welcome to GameLab, where you can create interactive animation and games. You've already practiced the basic of putting shapes on a grid. In GameLab, you'll do the same with the display area on the left, okay? So this is our display area right here, okay? I'm gonna put the grid up. It's nice seeing the grid. Remember that our grid is not like a math grid. Math grid starts from 0, 0, has a center point of 0, 0, and goes in x-axis, both negative and positive. So negative going this way, positive going that way, and y, negative and positive. Our grid is a computer grid, and it consists of a 0, 0 point up here. The x-axis goes from left to right, and it goes from 0 to 400. Our y-axis goes from the top to bottom, which is 0 to 400. So keep that in mind. That's just kind of a refresher. Okay, first thing we want to do is look at the line of code in the workspace below. It says we have a rect, which is a square, at 100, 100. Let's go ahead and see if we can find it on our grid. And 100, 100 would be right about there. So that's my guess would be that's where it's at. Let's go ahead and run it and see if that's where it's at. Sure enough, there it is, 100, 100. And we know that by we can either run our mouse over the top of the grid and it'll show us the point, or you can also look at it down here. Okay, so mouse also shows it. So when we turn off the grid, you can run your mouse around it. And if you look down below on the lower left right here, it actually gives you the coordinates for where your mouse is at. But I like to show the grid. Let's make it a little easier. Okay, let's move on to the next one. And we get a da 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 da. It's always nice to get a da 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 da. It usually means she does it. Okay, so this is a video by Amara. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to go ahead and watch that. It's a good video. It kind of gets you started on what we're supposed to be looking for. I'll wait for you to come back. Okay, welcome back. We're going to be placing squares now. We're working with squares, or rects. We call them rects because they're eventually going to be rectangles. They can be big, large, small, whatever it may be. But today we're dealing with squares. So let's go ahead and turn on our grid first. Okay, by turning on our grid, we can see all of our little points. And what it's asking us to do is put a square in the upper left-hand corner and in the bottom right-hand corner. Let's go ahead and see what we've got here right now. It's given us one square and it puts it at 100, 100. Well, we don't want it there. So let's go ahead and reset it. First point of origin is going to be in the upper left-hand side. So our first point of origin comes into the 0, 0 coordinate. So our first one is already here. So let's go ahead and type in 0 and 0. So that should put our first square up in this little box right here. Let's go ahead and run it. And there it is. So the next thing we have to do is go ahead and drag some more code over. So we're going to put our code over here. And we're going to change our coordinates. Now, we want it to go down in this lower box right here, which is this box right here. Now, remember on our square, the upper left-hand corner is the point of origin. The point of origin in this would be right here. Okay, right there, because we're using the square. If we went and put 400, 400, thinking, oh, it's the last square, 400, 400, it's going to put your square off the grid. It'll be down in this little portion here. So we're going to go up and use the point of origin as 350, 350. So we're going to type in 350 and type in 350. And let's see where we're at. There they are. They're both in the right spot. Upper left, bottom right, using our points of origin, upper left-hand corner of the box. Okay, good. Let's move on to the next one. And it's another video by Amara. So I'm going to give you a couple more minutes to watch this one. And this one's going to add a little color to what we do on our screen. Okay, welcome back. I hope you got something out of that video. And what we're going to do first of all, again, we turn on our grid. That way we can see it. Now we've got, if we look at the code here, we've got blue, 100, 100, 250, 100. You can also make your rectangles different colors with fill. Okay, it will set the color for each shape that comes after it. So what we're saying here is we start off with putting fill in first. It'll tell us what color we're using. It'll fill every single thing that you put below that until you change the color. So right now we have two squares at 100, 100, 250, 100 that are going to be blue. So let's go ahead and run it. And sure enough, we do. Two squares that are blue. Now we can also change the color on these. We all know that. We can change it to green. Let's go ahead and change it to green. We'll reset it and we'll run it. And there they are, green. What it's asking us to do is go ahead and change the colors to yellow. And we have to add another square. So in order to, first of all, let's add the other square. So we have to add another piece of code. Bring it over here. And we have to figure out where it's at. Now, it looks like it's directly below this square here. So we'll go right below it. We'll say it's right about in here. That coordinate is about 100, 200. So we have to change that one to 100. And it's already at 200. So let's go ahead and reset it. And we'll run it. And that's where it's at. But it's asking us to change the color. So let's go ahead and change the color on it. We want to run it to yellow. Okay, so we'll go ahead and reset it. We'll run it. And there it is. 3 yellow squares, just like our example. Okay, so remember, you change the colors on all of them. If you change the color on one square, everything that's below that will change to the same color. The only way you can make a difference is if I were to put in a fill. Let's say we make the last square different. We make it a red square. See, now what we've done is we have 2 yellows and we've changed the last square to red. Okay, let's go ahead and run it. And there it is. 2 yellows and the last square is red. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and move on. And we get a da-da-da-da. Okay, the next portion, we have to figure out why or how we put the green square above the blue square. In GameLab, it matters what order your code is in. New shapes are drawn on top of the other ones that come before, covering up the shapes that are drawn first. Okay. New shapes cover up the shapes that were drawn first. You can see the difference when you use more than one color in your code. Okay, look at the code that draws the 2 rectangles. The first one is drawn red and the second one is drawn blue. Change the rectangles colors to green. Change the order of the code so that the green rectangle appears on top. Okay, so here's what we got. Okay, so we have a red and a blue. We have a green and a blue. So we already know the blue's there. So what we want to do is we want to change the red to green. So let's go ahead and change the red to green first. We change that to green. Okay, so then we reset it and we're good. The only thing is the green should be on top, which means what? The green should go second. So let's move, first of all, we'll move the fill down and then we'll move the coordinates for the green square down. So now we have the blue one going first at 200, 200, and the green one going second. If it looks right, blue one's going first, green one's going second. Okay, let's go ahead and run ours and see how it looks. And there it is. Put the grid up, and there it is. Blue going first, green going second. Blue's on the bottom, green's on top. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so on this one, we have ellipses. We're going to deal with circles. Let's go ahead and turn our grid on first. Okay, so you can use an ellipse to make a circle. We knew that. Look at the code that makes the ellipse, add a new ellipse of a different color. Okay, so what we have here, we have a teal. Okay, so teal's okay, it's a color, and what we want to do is we want to add a second ellipse down here in the middle somewhere. So first of all, we have to add the ellipse because we're adding a second one. But it shows as a different color, doesn't it? One's green, or one's teal, and one's orange. So we have to go ahead and put a fill in here above that second coordinate of that second ellipse. So the first one's teal. Second one, we have yellow. We'll call it yellow for now. And let's see what we look like. Okay, that looks pretty close to where they're supposed to be. Now, in our selection process, we only have red, green, blue, yellow, and then some RGB colorings. RGB colorings you'll learn about later. It's actually red, brown, green, and you combine those to make different colors, and the spectrum is just huge on what you can make. So let's just go ahead and call ours, let's go ahead and make it blue. We'll make ours blue. So when we reset it, we'll run it, we have a green and a blue. Okay, we can also change this one up here. Let's go ahead and change that to red. And now we have a red and a blue. And there they are. Okay, always remember, fill comes first, ellipse comes second. Fill comes first, ellipse comes second. Okay, if I pulled out the fill here, what would happen? Think about it. If I pulled out that fill, what would these be? Would they both be the same color? Yeah, they would. They'd both be red. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, in the last portion, what we're given here, often code doesn't work the first time it runs, and programmers have to debug it. The code below is supposed to make the picture on the right, but the programmer got confused about which order the code should be in, as well as how to put a square in the right place on the screen. So we want to do this. We want to make our code, or this code, look like this here. Let's see what it looks like right now. The way it's set up, it has a bug. It has a bug for two different things. Number one, it's set on the back side of this. And number two, it's not in the right spot. So we need to move it up. Let's go ahead and turn on our grid. Turn on our grid. And what we want to do is we want to get that square up top of these. So in order to put that square up top, we have to make sure that the code is the very last thing, because it's going to be the one on top. So we put the code here. Okay, so if we go ahead and reset it, we just look at what we got. And now our purple box is up top. It should be up top because it's supposed to be on top of the 4 ellipses. Okay, so if we look at our square, we need to move it over here. Point of origin will probably be right here because we want this square to be occupied by the purple square. So let's change our coordinates. And the coordinate was 150 about. So let's go ahead and change our coordinate 150. Okay, 150 and 150. And if we go ahead and run that, let's see what happens. Whoops. And there we go. Looks like our square. Our picture. Again, we had to move, we debugged it by number one, moving the square up to where it should be. And number two, putting it on the outside. Okay, so it would have to be the last thing coded. It's the last thing coded. Now, we can also change the colors. Let's change the color of our petals. Let's change them to green. Okay, let's see what happens when we change our petals to green. And that looks okay, but let's change this to red. All right, there you go. Red. And let's go ahead and run red. And there it is. So we've changed the color, we moved things around. This was part of the debugging process. To make it work, we had to debug it. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, and which should be the last portion of this, last bubble. And this is kind of a brief summary of what we've just done. There are a lot of different options for drawing in GameLab. You've already seen 3 blocks: the rect, which draws a rectangle of squares, ellipse, which draws circles, and fill, which fills them with color. The rect block will plot a square at the XY coordinate it is given. X and Y coordinates tell it where the top left corner of the square goes in the display area. Ellipse, the ellipse block, will plot a circle at the XY coordinate. The XY coordinates tell us where the center of the circle goes in your display area. And the fill block fills color in your GameLab shapes and squares. Excuse me, circles and squares. So that is it for this portion. This is lesson 3 of unit 3. And I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for lesson 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on. And hope to see you soon. If you do have any questions, come to my office hours during the week, or you can just email me if you'd like. But I'm always ready for office hours, so come visit. All right, we'll talk to you later. Thank you.